Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to do another Swedish beer, and this is another brewery who are fairly local to me here in Skåne, and it's my second review from these guys actually. So for this one we are going to go to Brekeriet, and we've got one of their beers that's just been released here in Sweden through Systembolaget. So this one is called Brekeriet. And it's a 5.5% Saison beer. It was rated at 87 on Rate Beer, so it should be pretty good. As some of you might know, these guys are a specialist Brettanomyces or sour beer brewery, I guess you could call them, and their beers are very highly rated. Sour beers is something that I haven't gotten too in depth with when it comes to the channel, but hopefully that can change since we've got a really good sour beer brewery fairly local to us here in Lund. But anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other Brekeriet reviews I've done before. There will hopefully be more added in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media. Make sure you go and check that out. If you want to see more beer reviews, do subscribe to the channel. And as always, to those of you watching here in Sweden, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. So anyway, Brekeriet are based in Djurslöv, which is just outside Malmö in fact, but they do now have a new brewery up in Landskrona, just to the north of me here in Lund. But the company was founded back in 2011 by the Ek brothers, and this was Fredrik, Christian and Andre, and as I mentioned, it's a specialist brewery in beers using Brettanomyces, and these guys were the first brewery in Sweden to do this, and they remain the only specialist sour beer brewery in Sweden to date. So the original brewery is based in the old brew house in Djurslöv, which was actually a share brewery for local farmers, and they brewed their first beers there back in 2012, and this brewery actually had quite a modest production of only 500 litres per brew, and this gave them a total yearly capacity of about 38,000 litres. But as of 2015 they have a new brewery in Landskrona where they can produce 20 hectolitres per brew, and now they have a fermentation capacity of 80 hectolitres as well, and apparently they produce their Wild Bunch beers continuously in Landskrona, but they also brew their Sour Patch and speciality beers still in the older brewery in Djurslöv. But in 2014 the brewery actually caused a bit of a stir because they withdrew completely from Systembolaget in Sweden, and this they were citing bureaucracy and things like that with the nationalised system, so they decided to focus on exports abroad, and apparently though this is actually the first time their beers have returned to Systembolaget since then. They managed to renegotiate a better deal or something like that, but that's one of the things I guess in Sweden. There are positives and negatives to the Systembolaget system. For beer bloggers like me, we can order beers from quite a lot of different things in the States, but from the States throughout Sweden, but for the breweries it can be quite a bureaucratic process, and they've got to pay, especially for the breweries in the north, they've got to pay quite a bit in transport costs to get their beers brought to the places like Gothenburg and Stockholm and Malmö and things like that. So there's positives and negatives to both sides, I guess. So that's enough about the brewery just now. They've got quite a few different beers. You can go and check out the brewery website and see the different ones that you can get. I think most of them are still exported. I think there's only 2 different ones that you can actually get through Systembolaget here in Sweden, but as I say, check out the brewery website and you can find out for yourself. So anyway, let's have a look at the beer itself. So it says on the side here, Wild Bunch. Brekeriet Brilliant is part of our collection of beers known as Wild Bunch, fermented using Brettanomyces and Saccharomyces yeast strains. So yeah, this one should be quite good. It's a Saison beer, as you may have guessed, and it comes in at 5.5%, and it was rated at 87 on Rate Beer, which should be quite nice. So yeah, it says on the side here, interestingly, imported by Shelton Brothers in Belchertown, Massachusetts, but product of Sweden, even though I've got it here in Skåne actually, so very, very local. But it says best before the 19th of January 2021, so it's well in date actually. And I have to admit, I'm surprised that a beer of 5% could last potentially 5 years in the bottle. So I'll just let you have a look at the artwork actually, forgetting to do that before we open the beer up. You can see this is a bit different from the standard, from the older Brekeriet artwork. They've changed their label art and things recently, but it's quite nice actually, quite simple, quite modern and well done. You can see the standard Brekeriet bottle cap on this one here. So let's get this guy open and we'll get on with the tasting then. So, as you can see, a nice smoky opening on this beer, and we'll get it out and into the glass. And you can smell, I'll tell you something, you can smell some of the tart character coming off this one as soon as you open it up. And I remember the last beer I had from these guys too, the carbonation came out and then disappeared very, very quickly. But you can smell some of the sort of wheaty things that you normally expect from the Saison. There's a bit of herbal, kind of spicy character coming off this beer too. But as you can see, there was a very, very light layer of a white kind of bubbly head on this one, quite bumpy actually, but you can see by the colour of this beer, you know, it's pretty much an opaque, bright yellow colour. It looks really nice. There's some big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of the what should be the head there, and there's a little bit of sediment in the bottom. You can see that in the bottle with this beer as well, and that's something that is commonplace with Brekeriet, and I think with sour beers in general. But looks a very nice beer. Let's have a look at the aroma. Yeah, so without sugaring it up, it doesn't quite come across as tart as it does from a distance. It's probably fair to say that. There's definitely a bready and kind of yeasty character to this one, which is what you would expect. It's almost wheaty, and it's wheaty and kind of spicy. You know, it has the typical Saison elements, and you can detect some of that kind of herbal, spicy character from the hops that must be in this beer. You can see when you sugar this beer up, you get a nice head on it. Yeah, it's actually quite mild in the nose, to be honest with you. Yeah, so you've got that big bready malt base, a bit of yeasty and wheaty character, definitely wheaty I would say. Maybe there's a little bit of a kind of biscuity, almost syrupy caramel or something in there, but that's quite mild. It really is the bready and yeasty and wheaty elements that are taking prominence in this beer. And it actually, to be honest, it doesn't smell too much like a sour beer. It does smell like a kind of straight up Saison. You're not getting as much of the tart, lemony sharpness and things that sometimes comes out of this beer. But yeah, it's really, really nice smelling this one. There's a bit of grassy, hoppy character coming out there. You can get a kind of herbal and maybe slightly vegetal character from this one, but more a kind of herbal spiciness, and that mixes with the malt base quite well, I have to say. But yeah, not even a little bit floral, grassy and herbal definitely in this one. And you can get just a little tiny bit of that typical lemon tartness that you expect of the Brettanomyces. And what's the other one called again? The Saccharomyces, I guess. But it smells a very nice beer. It looks like a really nice beer. Let's get stuck into this one. This is the brilliant Saison from Brekeriet in Landskrona here in Skåne, Sweden. Skål. Yeah, that's nice. It's nowhere near as sour as I was expecting. The last Brekeriet beer I had, which was one of the ones that Johan sent me actually, and it was a Saison as well, it was really quite sour in fact. But yeah, this one's interesting. The sour character in this really comes across as more juicy. That's a really, really good Saison, I have to say that. I can see, with the last beer I reviewed from Brekeriet, I can see why their Saisons and things like that are so highly rated, because they're sour beers, but they're not overwhelmingly sour. They're not too sharp and tart actually. They've got a good bit of flavour underneath the tartness to them, and the tartness comes off as quite juicy in this, and for me this is kind of how the sour beers should come across, but sometimes it is good to have some of the really kind of sharp sour beers as well actually. But I'll tell you something, this would definitely be a good seasonal beer. I really like the malt base in this as well. But yeah, this is good. I mean, the malt base in this one, there's just a little bit of the sediment going in there, make it a bit more bready I guess. But the malt base in this is really, really nice, I have to say. So the middle of your palate is just kind of blanketed with this nice big bready yeasty character, goes right across the tongue. It's got a bit of kind of thicker doughiness to the bread. There's also, I want to say there is maybe just a tiny little bit of a biscuity sweetness, almost just that little syrupy character. It just sits there in the middle of the tongue. And the wheat flavours in this one for me are really quite smooth actually. The flavour blend in this beer is really nice. It's not, for me, this one really isn't a kind of in-your-face beer, but everything blends together really quite well. This is an awesome summer beer actually. This would be a good summer session beer. And to session a Saison is actually a little bit different than an IPA or a pale ale or something like that, obviously. It's not a beer that you would think, or a style I should say, that you would think to session too often, but this is beautiful. This is really nice. Yeah. As your mouth starts to adjust to this beer, you do get a little bit of the Brettanomyces and things like that coming out. You get a little juicy bit just behind the front curve of your tongue there, and there's some of that, just a little bit of that kind of sharp tart citrus comes out there. It's not too sharp, it comes across as more juicy, to be honest with you. Kind of almost what you would expect from a Saison that's done without the Brettanomyces. This beer is done really nicely. But you can definitely detect some of that Brekeriet and Saccharomyces character in there. They've got the balance in this between the sourness and the Saison thing. They've done that very, very well with this beer. There's no question about that. Around the sides of the palate, you've got a nice kind of grassy hop character. There's a little bit of herbal, almost kind of spicy character, just a little bit of a spicy character there, and that actually blends very, very well with the wheaty aspects of the beer. As I say, the blend of flavours in this beer is done perfectly. A very, very good kind of summer session beer. As you go around the front of the tongue, there is a little bit of dryness, maybe even it's a little touch floral around the front of the tongue there, but mainly grassy, a nice kind of herbal sort of vegetal, not really vegetable, definitely more a kind of herbal character coming out of this beer, but that goes together very, very well with the malt base in this one. And as I say, just behind the front curve of the tongue, you get that little sort of oily, juicy bubble in there, and that's where you get some of these kind of lemony, sharp, slightly tart characters that you would expect from a Brettanomyces or Saccharomyces beer. But that's really nice. You know, on the basis of this beer and the other one I've tried, you can see why Brekeriet are really highly rated. They get the blend of flavours just perfect in their beers. So yeah, give this one a go for yourself and see what you think. I think this is a very, very nice Saison, ideal for sessioning during the summer. And like I say, it's a style that you wouldn't think to session too much, but they've got it pretty much bang on. It's a really nice beer. It's not too in your face. It's not very punchy with the kind of sour character. Maybe if you age it a little bit, you'll get more and more of that sour character progressively, because it does last for 5 years. I'm drinking this beer quite fresh, so it probably would sour up a little bit more if you age it, but it's very, very good. There's no question about that, and I'm sure with age, like with a lot of things, they do get even better. But in terms of the mouthfeel of this one, I would say this one's mid-bodied. The carbonation is, you know, as you would expect from a Saison, it's quite smooth. The malt base in this one is very, very smooth as well. I really like how the malt base blends together with the hops. The hops just have a little tiny bit of dryness around the front curve of the tongue there, but overall, again, they are very, very smooth, and there's a little bit of that kind of sharp tart character, but for me, it actually comes across as a little bit more juicy, and it's quite an oily mouthfeel, this one, pardon me, but as I said, it's quite a sessionable and quite drinkable beer. So if you enjoy your Saisons, then I would say this is definitely one you want to check out. For me, the flavour blend in this is pretty much bang on. They've done a very, very nice beer here, and it's good, of course, to see Brekeriet available quite so easily in Sweden. I guess a lot of people did miss them when they left Systembolaget, so hopefully this is the first of many new beers that we get from Brekeriet here in Sweden. So yeah, make sure you go and check out the brilliant Saison from Brekeriet. As always, I hope you've enjoyed my beer review. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Do let me know your favourite beers from Brekeriet as well, and to those of you in Sweden, do let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. I'm sure that we will return to Brekeriet in the fairly near future. But until the next time, it's Slange just now. Go and check out the social media and everything like that, but make sure you try some Brekeriet beers. One of the most highly regarded craft breweries in Sweden, and quite rightly so, I think, and the sour beer speciality that they do is pretty interesting, so make sure you check it out. Skåne.